Chapter 14. Marion didn't get far before she felt a paw on her shoulder. She whirled around, not surprised to see Robin, silhouetted in the moonlight. His face was grave, his eyes filled with apology. At least he wasn't laughing at her like the rest of them. She bit her lower lip, her body trembling with anger, part of it aimed at herself. What had she been hoping for anyway? She just met them all, and what? She expected them to drop everything and sign up for a revolution? When she didn't even have a plan herself? But still, it hurt to stand there and be laughed at like that. Robin reached out, cupping her face with his paw. He met her eyes with his own, his pupil swimming with regret. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "My men are good-hearted folk, but sometimes they lack basic manners." Part of her wanted to push him away, to turn and flee into the forest, but he seemed so sincere. It made her heart hurt. How many times had she looked into his eyes over the years? They had always filled her with such comfort, but now she felt only an aching chasm of regret. "Oh, Robin," she thought, "will it ever be like it once was?" She sighed deeply. "They weren't wrong," she assured him. "Of course the 8 of us wouldn't be able to take down a kingdom. It takes armies to do that, and even then, it's nigh impossible." She wrinkled her snout. "But I can't help it. I just feel so helpless right now, to see my uncle's subjects suffering like this. And then to be told there's nothing we can do to stop it. Then it's just going to go on like this forever?" "I know," Robin said quietly. "Believe me, I feel the same. I hate being forced to hide away like this in the forest, knowing others are suffering." "Then help me," she blurted out before she could stop herself. "Even if the others won't, it could be you and me, side by side, stirring things up, just like the old days." She held her breath, and there it was, her plea, laid bare in front of him. Whatever he said next, she knew would change everything between them, forever. "Please, Robin," she thought, feeling the tears well in her eyes. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared at the ground as if it held all the answers. And suddenly, she realized she knew exactly what he would do, or say, even before he was able to say it. And something inside of her died. "Well then," she managed to croak out. She started to turn, but Robin grabbed her before she could step away, pulling her around to face him again. His face was contorted with grief. "Marion, I want to help you, more than you can ever imagine. But please, try to understand. I made a vow to those men back there. I promised to lead them and keep them and their families safe. They're all wanted criminals under Prince John's rule, and the sheriff would love nothing more than the chance to arrest them and throw them into the castle dungeons. Or worse, an excuse to retaliate by targeting their families back in Nottingham, their children even." Marion winced, her mind flashing to little Tagalong. "I hadn't thought of that," she admitted softly. "Of course you hadn't. You're too good and kind-hearted and ready to stick your neck out for the others. But Marion, I can assure you, the animals you met tonight are not cowards, hiding out from their responsibilities. They're brave souls who have already given up everything in the desperate hope of protecting their loved ones." Marion nodded slowly. What Robin was saying, well, it made sense. But at the same time, it did nothing to soothe her frustration. If no one was able to stand up for what was right, then the wrongs would continue indefinitely, and nothing would ever change. No, she squared her shoulders. She wouldn't let that happen. Robin and his men might not be able to help her, but that didn't leave her helpless. She was her uncle's niece, after all, and he had never backed down from a bully. "I understand," she said. "But understand this. I will find a way to help my king's subjects, even if I am forced to do it all by myself." Robin's mouth quirked into a sad smile. He gazed at her with eyes brimming with emotion. "I wouldn't expect anything else from my Marion," he whispered, his voice rough. For a moment, they just looked at each other. looked as the world seemed to fall away from around them. For that one moment, there was no Prince John, no Sir Hiss, no hungry rabbits and turtles in town, just two best friends who had been through so much together, standing side by side once again. At last, Marian forced herself to turn away. "I have to go," she whispered, hardly daring to speak. "Before I'm missed." Robin startled, as if woken from a deep slumber. Then he nodded slowly. "Of course," he said. "I'll escort you out." He started down the trail. "Don't I need a blindfold?" she said hesitantly. "You said—" Robin shrugged. "I trust you," he said softly, "and I need you to remember how to get back here, just in case." He didn't finish his sentence, but he didn't have to. She could see the concern written on his face, and knew it wasn't unwarranted if she was determined to play this dangerous game. She might soon find herself as outlawed as the rest of them. "All right," she said. "Lead the way." She fell into step behind him, and together they made their way through the dark forest. As they walked, Robin pointed out various markers that most have walked right by. "Follow these markers," he told her, "and you will end up at our camp." He also taught her a special whistle to let the others know she was a friend, not a foe. And he explained all about the ghosts of Sherwood Forest, which were not ghosts at all, but rather haunting sounds made by the wind blowing through the trees. Too soon they reached the edge of the forest, the road back to the castle, lit by a bright full moon, while a field of stars twinkled in the sky. Robin turned to Marian, giving her a small bow. "I dare not go any farther," he said. "I hope you can find your way from here." "Yes," she assured him. "I'll be fine. I know where I am." She reached up to unclasp the green cloak she still wore. "I need to give this back to you," she said, "and your hat." But Robin waved her off. "No need," he said. "I'd rather you keep them. The night is still crisp. I don't want you to be cold." She considered arguing with him, but in the end only nodded, for she was cold, and the cloak was warm and smelled like the forest, like Robin himself, and she found she couldn't bear to part with it. She'd already lost too much that night. She would keep this. She would wear it and think of what could have been. In another time, in another world. "I need to go," she rasped. "Take care of yourself, Robin, and your men." He nodded stiffly. "You too," he said. "And Marian, please be careful," he added in a rush. "I couldn't bear it if something were to happen to you." "Don't worry," she replied, remembering the last time they had this conversation, under the old apple tree in the castle garden, what felt like many years before, when she was young and innocent and still believed in happy endings. "I'll have the enemy shaking in their boots," she quipped, and even though she felt like crying, she forced a grin to her face. Robin gave her a sad smile. "I'm sure you will," he said, "but promise me you'll be careful all the same." "I promise," she whispered, and then forced herself to take that first step, to walk away, down the road towards the castle, not allowing herself to turn around to see if he was still watching from the forest's edge, because she knew, deep in her heart, if she found that he was, she would not be able to leave his side again, even if it meant giving up everything. But she couldn't be selfish, she reminded herself. The animals needed her, and she was the only one left who could help.